Superman has turned against the Avengers, and the world is in chaos. Manipulated by Lex Luthor, the Man of Steel becomes their deadliest foe. As the Avengers scramble to stop him, they realize their greatest mistake was trusting him. With time running out, can they save Superman before it's too late? The ultimate battle for Earth begins now. The unthinkable betrayal. The sun hung high over Metropolis, its rays casting a harsh glow on the city's towering skyscrapers. It should have been an ordinary day, peaceful, calm, but the crackling sound of chaos filled the air. Sirens wailed. People ran in panic. A massive shockwave rippled through the streets, sending cars and debris flying in every direction. At the center of it all stood Superman, eyes glowing an eerie red. The Avengers had been in the city for an emergency meeting when everything went wrong. They had been prepared for the unexpected. But this was beyond anything they could have imagined. Everyone, move! Captain America barked, rallying the Avengers. Iron Man quickly analyzed the scene, his mind racing. This doesn't make sense. He's not just fighting, he's attacking us. Superman, once a symbol of hope and justice, stood at the center of the destruction, his posture cold and unwavering. His usual warmth was replaced by a chilling detachment, his fists clenched in anger. He had always fought alongside the Avengers, but now, he was their greatest threat. "This isn't him," Tony Stark muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. "Superman wouldn't just turn on us like this. Something's controlling him." "Can we stop him?" asked Thor, his grip tightening on Mjolnir. Captain America's face tightened with determination. "We have no choice. We have to try." But as they approached, Superman's eyes locked onto them, a sinister smile curling at the corners of his mouth. "You were always too weak," he said, his voice unnaturally calm, the words echoing through the chaos. The Avengers had seen him in action countless times, fighting alongside them, protecting the world. But this wasn't Superman. This was a version of him corrupted by something dark, something that twisted his mind and turned his heart cold. Superman's eyes flashed bright red. Without warning, he hurled a devastating blast of heat vision toward Captain America. The shockwave knocked the Avengers back, sending them crashing to the ground. The force of the blast had leveled buildings in its path. "Fall back!" Iron Man shouted, quickly recalibrating his suit systems. "We need to regroup." But even as they retreated, the Avengers couldn't shake the reality of what was happening. The strongest man on Earth had become their greatest enemy. And worse still, they didn't know why. "We need to find out who's behind this," Black Widow said, her voice grim as she helped Captain America back on his feet. Iron Man's voice crackled through their comms. "I'm tracing the energy signature. This is no ordinary attack. It's Kryptonian tech, and it's coming from Luthor." The mention of Lex Luthor sent a chill down everyone's spine. Superman's greatest enemy, the man who had never once given up on his plans to destroy the Man of Steel. It made sense now. Luthor must have found a way to control him. "We can't fight him directly. Not like this," Captain America said, his voice full of urgency. "We need a plan. Fast." But as the Avengers regrouped, the city trembled beneath them. Superman, hovering above the ruins of Metropolis, was waiting. "I gave you all a chance," Superman's voice rang out, amplified by the power of his heat vision. "Now, I'll show you what happens when you fail." The Avengers exchanged determined looks. They knew this battle would be their hardest yet. But what they didn't know was that their trust in Superman, the man they had called an ally, had already been their greatest mistake. The hunt for the truth. The sound of Superman's booming voice reverberated through the air, causing the Avengers to brace themselves. His words were like daggers, sharp, unrelenting, and full of menace. "I am no longer your ally. You will learn what happens when you underestimate me." With each word, the world around them seemed to shrink. The weight of the situation hung heavily on their shoulders. Their friend, no, their brother in arms, was now their enemy. And even worse, he was being controlled by something darker than any of them had imagined. Iron Man quickly scanned the surroundings, hoping for any clue that would point to how Luthor was controlling Superman. "I've narrowed it down to a source deep in Metropolis, possibly underground," Tony said, his voice strained with the effort. "But I don't know how much time we have before he's fully gone." Captain America looked at the team, his expression resolute. "We don't have time to waste. We move out now." The Avengers split into groups. Captain America, Black Widow, and Thor went in search of Luthor's hidden base, while Iron Man and the Hulk prepared for a potential confrontation with Superman. Every minute was critical. They had to stop Superman before he caused more destruction, and before Luthor's grip on him became permanent. As they moved through the wreckage of Metropolis, the city itself felt like a ghost town. The usual hum of daily life had been replaced by eerie silence, punctuated only by distant explosions and the sound of Superman's laughter echoing through the streets. Tony Stark's voice broke the silence. "I've pinpointed the signal. We're close." Meanwhile, Captain America led his team deeper into the underground lay. The air grew colder as they entered a large, dimly lit room. At the center was a strange device, a machine pulsing with energy that crackled with a dangerous power. It was Kryptonian tech, fused with something far darker, something that had been manipulating Superman's mind. "We need to destroy this," Black Widow said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is what's controlling him." Before Captain America could respond, a voice rang out from the shadows. Too late. They turned to see Lex Luthor step forward, his face twisted into a malicious grin. "You think you can stop me? You've already lost." The Avengers exchanged tense glances. They had found Luthor. But was it too late to save Superman? The battle for Superman's soul. Luthor's presence filled the room with a chilling weight. The man who had tormented Superman for years now stood before the Avengers, his smile smug and filled with confidence. The device at the center of the room pulsed with unnatural energy, its hum vibrating through the floor beneath them. "Lex," Captain America said, his voice low but full of authority. "What have you done to him? This isn't you. You're not just hurting Superman. You're hurting the world." Luthor chuckled darkly, his eyes glinting with satisfaction. "Oh, Steve, you still don't get it, do you? This is me. Superman was always a threat. The world needed a hero, until he became too powerful, too uncontrollable. And now, with my control, he'll be the weapon I always knew he could be." "You're wrong, Luthor," Thor said, his voice thunderous. "You've twisted his mind, turned him into something he's not. We will stop you." "Try, if you can," Luthor sneered, stepping closer to the machine. "You think you can defeat me without Superman's strength? You're nothing without him." Just then, the ground trembled beneath their feet as the unmistakable figure of Superman appeared in the doorway, his eyes glowing a sinister red. His gaze swept across the Avengers, a cold, emotionless expression on his face. It was as if he had completely forgotten the man he had once been, the hero who fought for justice. "Superman!" Captain America shouted, his voice filled with both hope and desperation. "Fight it! This isn't you. You're stronger than this." For a moment, Superman's eyes flickered, just for an instant. A flicker of the old Kal-El, the man who cared, who fought for truth and justice, emerged. But the red glow quickly overtook it again. "I am stronger than this." Superman's voice was cold, devoid of the warmth it once carried. "Stronger than you all." With a powerful swipe, Superman launched himself toward Captain America, his strength unmatched. The force of the blow sent Steve crashing into the wall, his shield clattering to the floor. Thor rushed in, swinging Mjolnir with all his might, but Superman dodged effortlessly, striking back with a force that sent the God of Thunder soaring through the air. "I'm sorry, Steve," Superman's voice rang out, now almost robotic in its lack of emotion. "But you were never enough." The Avengers were reeling. Iron Man's suit buzzed with the hum of energy as he attempted to stabilize, firing repulsor blasts at Superman. But they did nothing. The blasts hit Superman's chest, and he didn't even flinch. It was as if the man they had known, the Man of Steel, was no longer there. Iron Man's voice crackled over their comms. "He's too powerful. We can't take him down like this." Black Widow's voice was urgent. "We need to shut down that machine. It's the key to controlling him." Luthor laughed, his hands raised in victory. "You can't stop me, Avengers. I've already won. And soon, the world will kneel at my feet, with Superman as my weapon." Captain America struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his lip. "We won't let you win, Luthor. Not while we still have a chance." With the Avengers pinned down and Superman seemingly unstoppable, the battle was far from over. They were out of options, their strength slowly being drained by the relentless attacks of their former ally. But there was one thing the Avengers had that Luthor didn't. They had hope. Tony Stark's voice rang through the comms again, this time with a new plan. I'm overriding the system. I just need a few seconds. Luther's eyes widened in surprise. You think you can hack this? I've made sure every contingency is covered. But it was too late. With a final push, Tony Stark overloaded the machine with a burst of energy, sending a shockwave through the room. The device sputtered, sparks flying in every direction. Superman screamed in agony, his hands clutching his head as the connection between him and Luther began to unravel. The red glow in his eyes flickered, then faded completely. For a moment, Superman staggered, disoriented. He looked at the Avengers, as if seeing them for the first time in a long while. What happened? He asked, his voice shaking. We're here, Kal-El, Captain America said, his voice filled with relief. You're free. But Luther wasn't finished. His voice was filled with rage as he lunged forward, attempting to regain control of the device. You may have won this round, but the war is far from over. With one final burst of energy, Iron Man fired a concentrated blast at Luther, knocking him to the ground. Stay down, Luther. As Luther struggled to rise, the Avengers knew the battle wasn't truly over. Superman was free, but the damage had been done. The world would never be the same. The Avengers stood side by side, bruised but resolute. They had saved Superman, but the scars of this battle would remain. The reckoning. The sound of Luther's groaning filled the air, but the Avengers paid him no mind. Their focus was on the man who stood before them, Superman, still dazed but free from the dark influence that had held him captive. His eyes, once a glowing red, had returned to their familiar shade of blue. The weight of the battle hung over him, his breath shallow as he tried to gather himself. Kal-El. Captain America's voice was soft, almost uncertain. Are you truly back with us? Superman's gaze locked onto Steve's, a flicker of recognition flashing across his face. The warmth that had been absent for so long began to return, but there was a lingering guilt in his eyes. I don't remember everything. I couldn't stop myself. His voice cracked, betraying the emotional toll of what had happened. Don't blame yourself, Thor said, stepping forward. You were not yourself. Luther is the one who should bear the weight of this. Superman shook his head, his expression pained. But I was myself, Thor. Even under his control, I knew. I knew what I was doing. And it was wrong. Iron Man, who had been monitoring Luther's movements, glanced at the defeated villain. He's out for now, but he's not gone. Luther will be back. And when he does, we need to be ready. Black Widow knelt beside Superman, looking him in the eye. You fought hard to break free, but Luther's manipulation was powerful. Don't let the guilt consume you. The world still needs you, Superman. I don't know if I can be the hero I was before, Superman whispered, his gaze falling to the ground. After everything I've done. Listen to me, Captain America said, his voice steady and commanding. You made a mistake, but it wasn't your fault. You fought to regain control. You are the hero we all know you to be. Superman's shoulders slumped, the weight of his actions still bearing down on him, but the words of his friends gave him a glimmer of hope. I don't know how to make this right. You'll find a way, Tony Stark said, walking over to stand beside him. You always do. You've got the Avengers behind you, Kal-El, and we'll always have your back. The Avengers were united, but the battle was far from over. Luther's plans had been thwarted, for now. But in the shadows, he was already plotting his next move. The Dark Genius would stop at nothing to regain control, and the Avengers knew that his reach extended far beyond what they could see. Superman's fall had shown them just how vulnerable they all were. We need to find Luther, and we need to stop him for good, Captain America said, his voice full of resolve. We can't let this happen again. Superman stood straighter, the weight of the conversation settling over him. He wasn't just Superman anymore. He was a man who had faced his darkest hour and emerged from it. And now, with the Avengers by his side, he would face whatever came next. The Avengers regrouped, the air thick with tension but filled with the strength of their unity. The battle with Luther might have been won, but the war was far from over. They needed to track down Luther before he could unleash his next plot, one that might tear the world apart. Superman turned to his team, a flicker of the old resolve returning to his eyes. Let's finish this. The Avengers set out, determined to stop Luthor once and for all. They had fought the battle of their lives, but they knew this was just the beginning. Luthor's grip on the world was slipping, but it was far from broken, and as the Avengers made their way through the wreckage of Metropolis, the storm clouds of war began to gather once more. But this time, they weren't just fighting for the world. They were fighting for the soul of Superman. Redemption and resolve. The Avengers stood at the threshold of a new war, the weight of their recent battle heavy on their shoulders. The world was still reeling from the destruction Superman had unintentionally caused, but with Luthor in custody and Superman's mind free, there was a glimmer of hope. They had faced their darkest hour, but now, they could finally breathe, just for a moment. Metropolis lay in ruins, a testament to the power that Superman had been forced to wield under Luthor's control. Yet amidst the devastation, the sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over the broken city. It was a symbol of the new beginning Superman was seeking, a chance to rebuild not just the city, but his own fractured identity. Superman, standing tall next to the Avengers, watched as the first responders began to clear the rubble. The people of Metropolis were starting to rebuild, showing the resilience they had always carried. He had been their protector, their beacon of hope. But now, it was time for him to prove that he could still be that hero, if they would let him. "I'm sorry," Superman said quietly, his voice filled with guilt. "I never meant to cause so much pain. I lost myself, and in doing so, I almost lost everything." Captain America placed a hand on his shoulder, his expression both understanding and firm. "You didn't lose yourself. You were manipulated, Kal-El. The world knows who you are, and you fought harder than anyone to get back to who you truly are." Superman nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. He wasn't sure if he would ever be able to forgive himself, but seeing the faces of his friends, the people who had never doubted him, gave him the strength to keep moving forward. Redemption wasn't a destination, it was a journey, and this was only the beginning. Tony Stark stepped forward, his usual sarcasm softened for once. "You're not alone in this, Superman. We all make mistakes. The important thing is what you do next. And right now, what you're doing is fixing things. You don't have to do it alone." Thor's voice boomed in agreement. "You are a hero, Kal-El. Nothing, not even the might of Luthor, can change that." With each word, Superman felt the weight lifting from his chest. For the first time in a long while, he felt as though he was truly seen, not as a weapon, but as a man who had fought for what was right, even when he had lost his way. As the Avengers stood together, their unity stronger than ever, the sound of approaching footsteps drew their attention. Luthor was being escorted in chains, his smug demeanor still intact despite his defeat. "This isn't over," Luthor sneered. "You may have won today, but I will find a way to break you all." Superman's eyes narrowed, the familiar steel in his gaze returning. "You won't break me again, Luthor. Not now, not ever." Luthor was led away, his arrogant smirk fading into the distance. But for the Avengers, this moment was more than just the defeat of an enemy. It was a moment of victory for trust, for redemption, and for the power of unity. As the team stood together, looking out over the rebuilt city of Metropolis, they knew that Luthor's defeat was just a chapter in a much larger story. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to overcome. But as long as they had each other, nothing was impossible. And Superman, no longer a weapon, but a true hero, was ready to face whatever came next. The end.